Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Beyond World is One. I'm Shivan Channa. This is Speed News. Let's start. Israel continues to ramp up its ground operations as well as aerial strikes across the Gaza Strip. On Sunday, an airstrike killed a Hamas official as Israel confirmed it targeted a key member of the organization. Hamas claimed that Ismail Barhoum, a member of its political bureau, was killed in strikes targeting a hospital in Khan Yunis. A Hamas official said that warplanes bombed the operating room at Nasser Hospital where Barhoum was receiving treatment. Barhoum is the fourth member of Hamas political bureau killed since last Tuesday, when Israel resumed airstrikes in the territory after an impasse over continuing a ceasefire. Defense Minister Israel Katz hailed the killing of Barhoum, saying he was the new Hamas Prime Minister in Gaza. Israeli military said it hit the hospital with precise munitions following extensive intelligence. Ahead of the crucial talks between the US and Russia and Saudi Arabia, a Ukrainian delegation met with their American counterparts as part of peace negotiations brokered by Trump. Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov headed the Ukrainian delegation. He called the talks with the US constructive and meaningful. On social media, Umerov said the discussions focused on proposals to protect energy facilities and critical infrastructure. Ukrainian President Zelensky also acknowledged the talks as constructive and useful, but Zelensky made it clear that it was Russia and President Putin who need to end the ongoing war. Even as the peace negotiations were underway in Riyadh, Russia launched drone strikes in Kiev, which led to a fire in a high-rise residential building. The overnight attack killed at least 3 people, including a 5-year-old child. The Trump administration will not defy a judge's order that blocked the use of war powers to deport alleged Venezuela gang members. Trump administration alleged that these 238 men were members of the Venezuelan gang and sent them to maximum security prison in El Salvador. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, said that the Venezuelans had been given their due process according to laws currently on the books. President Trump has earlier invoked the 200-year-old Alien Enemies Act to deport these men. A federal judge called Trump's use of the law incredibly troublesome, but later Trump denied signing any proclamation to deport the alleged Venezuelan gang members. He suggested his Secretary of State had more to do with the matter, telling reporters, "I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it." The US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has said attacks by the Houthi rebels have forced 3/4 of US flagged ships to avoid the Red Sea and take the long and expensive detour around the southern tip of Africa. Waltz added that a US destroyer was attacked 23 times the last time it went through the Red Sea. Waltz further said recent US airstrikes against the Iran-backed rebels have taken out key Houthi leadership, including the head of their missile program. According to the Houthis, recent US bombings on Yemen have claimed more than 50 lives. Australian government has said that the country's army has received its first delivery of a game-changer mobile long-range US rocket system. The country's acquisition of the HIMARS system used with devastating effect by Ukraine against Russian forces was accelerated after a 2023 defense strategic review. That review called for a shift towards long-range deterrence, with China's rapid military build-up feeding concerns about vulnerability of Australia's links to its trade partners and global supply chains. In response to the findings, the government announced at the time it would spend $1 billion to expand and speed up delivery of the high-mobility artillery rocket system. The first two of a planned 42 HIMARS launcher vehicles had already arrived from the US. France has been witnessing a massive wave of protests across several cities on the weekend against anti-Semitism. The protests were triggered following an attack on a rabbi in broad daylight, which shocked the Jewish community. The attack on the rabbi of Orleans, Ari Engelberg, happened when he was walking with his 9-year-old son from the synagogue located about 110 kilometers south of Paris on Saturday afternoon. According to local media, the suspect hurled anti-Semitic insults at the rabbi before physically attacking the rabbi. France's Interior Ministry has confirmed the arrest of the suspect shortly after the assault and transferred him to a psychiatric facility. The incident sparked condemnation. More than 300 people gathered on Sunday to rally against anti-Semitism at the place in Paris. At least 12 killed and 4 others injured in a road accident that sparked a forest fire in northern Mexico. The district director of civil protection said the accident occurred when a pickup truck with 16 people on board fell into a ravine in the mountainous Santiago area of Nuevo Leon state. Santiago's municipal president said that the accident could have been caused by a mechanical failure, as there were no marks on the road to indicate the brakes had been applied. Taiwan has claimed it has detained a Chinese boat which has been suspected of illegally supplying fuel to fishing boats trespassing in Taiwanese waters. This is according to the Taiwanese Coast Guard. The boat ignored repeated warnings and tried to flee before it was brought under control. The Coast Guard has said it was carrying around 500,000 liters of fuel and had attempted to supply fuel to other Chinese vessels unlawfully. The boat was escorted back to port near Taipei and the crew members were taken in for questioning. Illegal fishing by Chinese boats has been a recurring concern for Taiwan, which has stepped up patrols to deter unauthorized boats and activities. China, on the other hand, claims Taiwan as its own territory and has never renounced the use of force to bring the island under its control. North Korea has denounced the latest annual joint military drills by South Korea and the US. The North has warned that it will continue to strengthen its striking powers to overwhelm any threats from its enemies. The Disarmament and Peace Institute at North Korea's Foreign Ministry has issued the condemnation after Seoul and Washington wrapped up their 11-day annual military exercise, Freedom Shield, calling the exercise a planned and provocative nuclear war rehearsal. North Korea has said the aggressive and offensive nature of this year's drills was the highest in history, according to the Korean Central News Agency. It further added that North Korea vowed to consistently renew and strengthen its responses in all areas to overwhelm any military act by its enemies. On the other hand, South Korea and the US have said their exercises are defensive in nature. South Korean court has dismissed the impeachment hearing of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, saying that there are no sufficient grounds for impeachment. The court has reinstated Han as the acting president of South Korea. Han was given the position of acting president after Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached following his martial law order that lasted few hours. Han's impeachment was dismissed in a 5-1 vote by the court's 8 judges. Just a day after celebrating its 85th Republic Day, Pakistan claimed to have thwarted an infiltration attempt near the Pak-Afghan border. Pakistan security forces claimed that they eliminated 16 coverage terrorists in North Waziristan district. According to Inter-Services Public Relations (ISPR), Pakistan security forces detected a group attempting to enter the country through the border in the Ghulam Khan Kale Valley. They were intercepted and killed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's North Waziristan district. President Asif Ali Zardari lauded the security forces for the operation, reaffirming Pakistan's commitment to protecting its borders. Pakistan has witnessed a rise in terror activities in recent weeks. On 24th of March, at least 10 terrorists were killed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Dera Ismail district after security forces received intel about their movements. The Bangladesh Army has rejected the accusations of political interference levelled by the newly formed student-led party, terming them as hilarious and immature array of stories. The National Citizen Party chief, Naid Islam, earlier alleged that attempts were made by the Bangladesh Army to relaunch Awami League as part of a sponsored conspiracy. The newly formed student party has been holding rally protests at the Dhaka University campus, promising to thwart efforts to rehabilitate the Awami League with presumed military backing. The Bangladesh Army, in a statement, said that the accusations were nothing more than a political stunt. The statement, however, did mention of a courtesy meeting between the student leaders and the Bangladesh Army Chief General Waqar Uzzaman. It also added that the meeting was supposed to happen at the Army headquarters, but the two student leaders instead went to Army Chief's residence, Sena Bhavan. Thousands of protesters have gathered in The Hague to demonstrate against the arrest of former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte faces charges of crime against humanity in the International Criminal Court tied to his war on drugs, in which thousands were killed. Duterte's supporters shouted, "Bring him home." Pro-Duterte's demonstrators believe the former president was kidnapped to face the ICC. His lawyer, Salvador, told the court on 14th of March his client had been abducted from his country. The ICC chief prosecutor's application for his arrest said Duterte's alleged crimes were part of a widespread and systematic attack directed against the civilian population in the Philippines. Oil prices slipped in early trade as investors assessed the outlook for ceasefire talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war. The expectations that the peace deal could lead to an increase in Russian oil to global markets. Brent crude now trades just below $72 a barrel, while US oil trades around $68. Both benchmarks settled higher on Friday and recorded a second consecutive weekly gain as fresh US sanctions on Iran and the latest output plan from the OPEC Plus producer group raised expectations of tighter supply. Market sentiment toward oil prices has improved recently, given heightened supply risks stemming from US sanctions on Iranian exports and some optimism that US reciprocal tariffs may be less severe than feared. The broader demand-supply outlook still remains mixed, according to experts. The dollar drifted just below a 3-week high versus major peers as traders cautiously awaited clarity on US President Trump's next round of tariffs. The euro rose slightly following 3 straight sessions of declines, while the yen edged lower against the greenback. The dollar has been under pressure for most of this year as the market's assumptions that Trump would quickly usher in pro-growth policies transformed into worries that the president's aggressive and erratic trade policies could trigger a recession. The next round of tariffs is due on April 2nd, when the White House will announce reciprocal levies on many countries. Australia's bourse is set for a record number of secondary listings this year from mine developers enticed by the country's pension wealth, regulation and a jurisdiction less exposed to US President Donald Trump's trade wars. The Australian Securities Exchange is growing its market share in metals and mining, partly at the expense of Toronto and London rivals. Just as the sector needs to expand by $100 billion a year to produce the metals needed to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Malaysia plans to tighten regulations on semiconductors as it comes under US pressure to staunch the flow of chips to China. Semiconductor chips are crucial to the development of artificial intelligence. The US is investigating if DeepSeek, whose AI model's performance rocked the tech world in January, has been using banned US chips. Malaysian Trade Minister Zafrul Aziz said that the US government was demanding Malaysia closely track the movement of high-end NVIDIA chips that enter the country over suspicions that many are ending up in China.